anyway, what happened is because of the time change, he said, but I do have his testimony, and I'll submit that so you can have that. I think I'd like to just wrap it up by saying, why do I do this? You know, my wife's over here with her friend. They both played high school sports. I have a granddaughter, or two granddaughters, both very athletic, and one of my granddaughters very very much into volleyball. Um, that's why I do it. I just feel that if Senate Bill 215 doesn't pass, that eventually there will be no more girls sports. It'll be co-ed, and I think that'll be a travesty. It would fly in the face of Title IX and 52, I guess, like 52 or 53 years of progress for girls on the playing field. So with that, I'll wrap up and open up to public comment.
Well, before we open up to public comment, I have a couple questions.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, and then if you would like the help of one of your expert witnesses to answer, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
So first of all, Senator Richardson, we've worked together in the Senate for like 7 years now. I know you're always coming from a good place. So, and I appreciate that. I'm not completely, I'm not completely, how can I put it, totally opposed to some of the concepts behind what you're trying to do. But when I read your legislation carefully in preparation of today's hearing, one thing that I noticed is that this cuts across the board for all age groups, all grades. And if one of the concerns, which I think it's a legitimate concern, I think it's a little overblown. I don't think your claim that suddenly there'll be no more women's sports because there'll be so many trans women on sports teams is unlikely, because we know it's not that prevalent, right? It's something that there's not a high percentage of people who are trans, but for that to ever happen. But in any case, as students get older and more developed, I can certainly understand the concern about fairness. I know nowadays college education is extremely expensive, and boy, if you can get a sports scholarship, like that is really meaningful and help you pay for college. So I would be a little more open, if I'm not promising anything, but I would certainly be more open if the bill focused on like the older grades and it focused on creating fairness around scholarship opportunities and things like that. And I'm wondering, like, what in your view is the harm of, say, K through 5, grades K through 5, or K through 4, or K through 6? What is the harm of, in your view, of trans little children if they have, most trans people will tell you they knew from a very young age. Now, some aren't ready to come out until they're much older. They're not ready to, maybe they don't understand it themselves, or they're just not ready to share it with others. But we do have examples of trans children who come out very young, and their parents accept it, and their parents support them. So what would be the harm of a trans student in grades, say, K through 5, playing on the sports team that with which they identify in terms of their gender?
Sure how many sports teams there are really in K through 5. I guess they do have
intramural, maybe,
and stuff like that. But anything designated for biological girls, I think, should be kept that way, rather than trying to divide this up and to make those changes. I think it just has to be one way or the other. There are males, there are females, there are differences. There are obvious differences. I remember when my daughter was in the 3rd grade. She came home from field day, and she said, and I'm sure my wife was there because she always went to those events. But she said there was a young man there that all the competitions, and yeah, became famous baseball player, and getting his name at the Basement right now. But he was the Shields, I think. The Shields. Yeah.
Neil? Oh, so what? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the talent surfaces at a very young age. Now, in field, in when you're playing in elementary schools, at elementary age, I don't think there's that type of division. I think most of it is like co-ed.
But if your bill passed, it would have.
Delano Shields, that's who it was.
Yeah, I do remember him. Seaford, right?
Yeah.
If this bill passed, it would apply to all grades, right?
Okay.
So that's one of my concerns.
So are you saying if we would make it from 6 to 12 that you're supported?
No. That's why I said no promises, but I just think that that's worth pointing out that the arguments that are made about opportunities for scholarships and medals and things and going on to, I don't know, other teams beyond the K through 12 space really only apply to the older grades. So I feel like it's sort of like a hammer where you could use a scalpel. And so along the same lines, in terms of a scalpel, this bill does not offer any nuance around the length of time a student, since we are talking about students in K through 12, has been living their lives as the gender that they identify with, whether or not they have taken it, whether or not they're undergoing gender affirming care. Like, I believe that kind of nuance matters. I know that at the high levels, like Olympics and stuff like that, they do look at those things. They don't just say, well, you are assigned male at birth, therefore you're out. They look at how long have you been on hormones? How long have you identified? Is it the term that used to be used was consistent, persistent, and there's another istant. Because there's been in the past fears that, perhaps people who are identified male at birth are taking advantage of a system where they could get more medals if they switch genders. And, that's easily shown to be some type of a fraud, right? That would be a fraud. Someone just claiming there's something in order to play on a different team where they could get better results. That would be a fraud. There's a way to distinguish whether someone is trying to perpetrate a fraud and whether it's a genuinely held, part of who they are, their identity, and that, in the past has been considered, are they consistent? And the other istant that I don't remember, it's probably gone out of vogue now, but there are ways to tell if a child or a person is genuinely, feels like that they, their body doesn't match who they are as a person, or their gender assigned at birth doesn't match. So there's just all these areas of nuance that I think that this bill just doesn't address. It's just 100%. If your birth certificate near the time you were born doesn't say that you are a female, you're out. You can't, whether you're grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, whether you've lived your life as a girl in spite of what you were assigned at birth since you were 6 years old, there's just no nuance. And that would be, that's the reason why I can't support the bill. I would be more open to a bill that was a little, allowed for more nuance. And that's not going to satisfy many people who are activists for the trans community are going to say, are you crazy? You should never support any version of a bill like this. So I'm willing to put myself out there as someone who's open to some of these arguments around fairness, but only if there's more nuance. So that's, I wanted to explain why I, as the chair of the committee, am not going to be signing the bill backer, but, and if you want to respond to any things I said or ask someone else to, please feel free.
Well, this is my third attempt with this legislation. The first time I went before a committee, it was Senator Sarah McBride
Yes.
was the committee chairperson,
Yes.
and that was a pretty rough time.
Yeah, she was good.
The
She was strong.
the second time, it was you, and you were very fair, and you're being fair today too. I'll probably be here another General Assembly,
Yeah.
and therefore, if it doesn't get through this time, I'm sure there'll be a fourth attempt, and I would take your suggestions into consideration. This needs to be passed. This really needs to be passed. Women's sports need to be protected. There are lost opportunities for scholarships, for just to be on the roster, to play, to compete. So I think I know there are mothers out there that have little boys that want to play in little girls' teams, and I understand that. I know from my experience and seeing my children go through Little League and different sports activities, that there are parents out there that insist that their child gets to play. Why didn't my child get to play more, on this particular team? Why did you put the other person pitching or something like that? So there's parents out there like that really defend and push for their kids' opportunities. Anything that I think there are differences that have been pointed out in the male physique. Well, that's in her testimony from Dr. Parsons. Even if you lower the testosterone level, you still have the larger heart, larger lung capacity, usually the longer legs, and so forth. The other advantages that don't go away by lowering the testosterone. By recognizing that this testosterone level is a concern, emphasizes the fact that, males and females are different. And you're trying to make this thing, put them on a level playing field. It's never going to happen with males competing in female sports. If anything that's going to happen is females are going to lose opportunities.
Well, in response to that, I'll just say I do remember one. I haven't watched it back, but I do remember that very interesting hearing, and between you and Senator McBride was the chair, and something that she raised that I'll raise in my own words because I'll never be able to do it justice, is that a young woman assigned a female at birth who grows up to be 6'3" is going to have certain advantages, perhaps on the basketball court if she's very, coordinated, over a young woman who grows up to be, 5'4". Like there's all kinds of advantages that people are born with and disadvantages. And yet we somehow manage to not decide that we're only going to have teams for everyone above a certain height and everyone within this height range. And then the shorter people will have their own separate teams. So I remember when she said, do you really think that I would be competitive against an Elena Del Don just because I was assigned male at birth? And it was a good moment. And it's just a moment that is one argument that I think is worth, from my perspective of being the loyal opposition to this bill, would make that, you can minimize the amount of advantage that someone might have because they happen to have been born male at birth, through interventions that many trans people choose to do anyway to align their bodies more with their minds and hearts. But I'm probably talking out of school on a subject that I should be very careful about because, like I said, it's probably not going to make very many people happy on either side of this debate. But that's where my heart is at. And if we see the bill again, I would love to see something maybe more narrow and more nuanced. And who knows, at that point, I might come to a different conclusion. What I'm going to do for the sake of process for people to know, and yes, we're about to open up to public comment, because there are so many pieces of testimony that we didn't get a chance to review, let us get those copied out to all the committee members before we circulate the bill so we can truly say we read all the testimony, and then I can circulate the bill for signatures at that point. To give us a couple days, or I guess we're not in next I guess it could be early March when we come back. But that'll give us plenty of time to read those that additional testimony and make an informed decision on whether we want to release. Okay.
Sounds fair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Nicole, if you could start the public comment, please.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. If I mess up anybody's name, I apologize in advance. Up first, I have Nandi Gamble, followed by Rich Bryant.
Thank you, Madam Chair and member of the committee. My name is Nandi Gamble, Policy Analyst for Delaware Family Policy Council, and we strongly support SB 215. At its core, SB 215 is about fairness, safety, and the integrity of women's sports. It recognizes a simple and enduring truth: biological differences between males and females matter in athletics. Ignoring those differences does not create equality, it erases it. For generations, Title IX opened doors for women and girls by ensuring they could compete on a level playing field. Those opportunities were not symbolic. They were built on the understanding that athletic competition must account for biological reality in order to be fair. SB 215 preserves that legacy. Just last year, this legislature unanimously passed HCR 7, formally recognizing National Girls and Women's Sports Day in Delaware. That resolution celebrated the accomplishments, strength, and dedication of female athletes across our state. But to recognize women's sports in name only while allowing the standards that made those achievements possible to be dismantled would be beyond hypocritical. And it's essential that this conversation includes what happens after high school, because post-secondary athletics do not exist in a vacuum. College and professional opportunities are built on the pipeline that starts middle and high school. If girls are denied fairness and equal competition now, they will never even reach college scholarships or professional careers. Protecting women's sports in higher education begins with protecting them now. Also, Delaware has already moved away from sex-based safeguards in other areas. In recent years, the General Assembly removed the requirement for consistent gender assertion in defining gender identity. That change has made clear definitions even more critical when it comes to athletic competition. This is not a matter of ideology, but one of physiology. SB 215 does not demean anyone. It simply ensures that female athletic categories remain protected.
Up next, I have Rich Bryant, followed by Norma Eckert.
Good evening. My name is Rich Bryant, proud citizen of Delaware, and I support Senate Bill 215. Protecting the integrity of sports is essential so athletic ability can be showcased in its truest form. This is why performance-enhancing drugs are prohibited. Anabolic steroids create unfair advantages, and according to the NIH, they can increase strength by 5 to 52%, placing competitors at a clear disadvantage. If we recognize the unfairness of PEDs, we must also recognize the unfairness faced by female athletes when required to compete against forces much stronger than PEDs, the biological male. The NIH also states that in sports relying on endurance, muscle strength, speed, and power, males typically outperform females by 10 to 30%, depending on the event. Asking girls to compete at a disadvantage of at least 10%, upwards to 30%, is a disservice to the athletes who have invested years of hard work, discipline, and sacrifice to compete on a level playing field. This bill does not claim that transgender individuals cannot participate in sports. Rather, it asks that athletic competition be organized in a way that aligns with biological reality. Endurance, muscle strength, speed, and power are all fundamental elements of sports, and they are not determined by biology. And they are determined by biology, not identity. SB 215 is not about exclusion. It's about protection, protecting fairness, opportunity, and the future of girls' athletics in Delaware. For the sake of Delaware families and for girls who deserve equal opportunity in sports, we ask for your support of SB 215. Thank you.
Up next, Norma Eckert, followed by Viana Cavazos.
Hello, good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Norma Eckerd. I am a parent of a transgender child, and I am here in firm opposition of Senate Bill 215. Let me be absolutely clear. My child is not the problem. Transgender people are not the problem. And the gender of any child in Delaware is not the crisis this legislature should be focused on. Even the sponsor of this bill has acknowledged that there are no transgender girls competing in Delaware interscholastic sports. That should end this discussion. SB 215 does not address a real issue. It manufactures one by targeting a small, vulnerable group of young people. I have loved ones who are school-aged, K through 12, what deeply concerns me is that this bill invites the government and school systems to scrutinize children's bodies. What a child has under their clothes is no one's business, not a legislator's, not a school's, not the state's. This bill would require schools to police students' bodies. This is invasive, inappropriate, and deeply disturbing. It places educators in an impossible position and teaches children that their bodies are subject to government inspection and suspicion. If we truly want to protect students, there are real issues demanding attention. Mental health crises in our school, teacher shortages, special education services, and bullying prevention. Instead, this bill fixates on fear and misinformation and turns children into political targets. SB 215 is not about fairness. It's about exclusion. It is not about safety. It creates harm. And it is not about privacy. It actually violates it. I urge you to reject SB 215 and stand for evidence, compassion, and the dignity of all Delaware children. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Viana Cavazos, followed by Christopher Beardsley.
Good afternoon. My name is Viana Cavazos. I'm a resident of Senate District 21. I'm here today to urge you to oppose Senate Bill 215. While Delawareans are worrying about education funding, school redistricting, and access to quality education, we are instead wasting time and taxpayer dollars debating trans kids in sports. We should be better discussing how to fund sports programs, equipment, and facilities for all students. This bill is not about fairness. Trans girls are not taking scholarships away from cisgender girls. They are not dominating competitions. They are not a threat to anyone's safety. This bill exists solely to make kids feel unwelcome in their own schools. If we truly want to protect and support women's sports, fund them. The facts are clear. Major sports, legal, and medical organizations, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Women's Sports Foundation, and the National Women's Law Center all support the inclusion of transgender athletes in sports that align with their gender identity. In fact, academic research from the British Journal of Sports Medicine confirms transgender girls and women do not have any inherent advantage in sports and may in fact face specific athletic disadvantages. What concerns me most is the impact on mental health. Participation in sports significantly improves mental health outcomes, self-esteem, and sense of belonging for all young people. Studies show that LGBTQ+ youth who participate in sports have lower rates of depression and anxiety. No law that starts by protecting trans kids can ever protect any kid. The Delaware General Assembly has far more important things to discuss this session. The bill we were supposed to hear before this is on school funding.
Thank you. That
Far
is
more.
time.
Thank you, Vienna.
All right. Up next, Christopher Beardsley, followed by Javon Rich.
My name is Christopher Beardsley. I'm from Townsend, Delaware, also a candidate for U.S. Senate and member of the LGBTQI+ community, and urge you to oppose SB 215. Often in my life, growing up as a gay man, I experienced many of those who spoke words that entered every space that I grew up in: the church, the home, my school, abnormal words associated with my life and my assertion of who I was. which is a right that we all have, an assertion of who we are as individuals in every space. No one should have their right be questioned about who they are. As a former cross-country and track runner, I understand the importance of sports and establishing a sense of community. I ran D3, and I nearly lost every single race I ran. It wasn't about winning for me, unfortunately, but it was about that sense of community and making sure that we all have a space to run the races we want. Blanket bans like these only add to the severe scrutiny of policing at a time where we only want the safety to understand more of ourselves as we're growing up. We are part of a chorus of voices. We understand traditionally that biological women sing soprano and they sing alto, but would you have Julie Andrews limit herself to not being able to sing tenor or to sing bass? That is the chorus of humanity that we need to be more inclusive of understanding all of our places in this world that we're living in. So these exclusive policies trickle down to the mouths of each generation. They're not erased overnight, but take centuries and decades to overcome. To that's so gay, aren't you a girl, aren't you a boy? I had a classmate tell me I should use the girls' room because I wasn't considered a real man. It's not by any other establishment by that. So understand the policies you have will impact the words out of students' mouths. Unfortunately, those same classmates, as I see today, have now become state legislators and still haven't learned their lessons about acceptance and community.
Thank you. That is time.
Trans lives matter.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, Siobhan Rich, followed by Brittany Rumford.